Hey, this is René. Welcome to another video on this channel, and in today's video I will teach you how to write an automated program that trades the signals of the Alligator indicator. So if you do not know this indicator, you can find it in the navigator, which you can open and close by clicking on View Navigator. In the indicators folder here, and then you click on Bill Williams, and there you will find the Alligator. I already attached it to the chart, and you can see there are several inputs, and there are so many inputs because this alligator draws a total of 3 lines. You can see here the green line, the red line, and the blue line. And in the data window you can see all of these lines, they have values, and they are called jaws, teeth, and lips. And this is because these 3 lines combined, they build an alligator mouth pretty much. So that's the idea of this indicator, I think. And there are several strategies that you can trade using this indicator. What I want to demonstrate in this video, in this tutorial, is that we trade the crossover of the green and the red line, because the green line is the fastest line, the lips line, and then we have the teeth, which is a little bit slower, and then we have this blue line, which is the slowest line. So we basically trade the crossovers of these 2 lines, the green and the red. So if the green rises above the red line, then we enter a buy trade. But before we do this, we check the blue line, and we check if the current price is above the blue line. Because if we have, let me search for some false signal here. For example, in this case, the green line here drops below the red line, but the price is above the blue line, so we do not take this short trade, which would be a loss. So this does not work for every single situation, but I think this filter might help us to get rid of some of these false signals. So let's jump right into the programming part. So whenever we want to write a program, we need the MetaQuotes language editor. You can find it if you click on IDE here in the upper left corner. So this will then open the meta editor, and here we can click on experts, and we can create a new expert by clicking on new in the upper left corner. So we click on next, we choose a name, Alligator Trader or Alligator System. Doesn't really matter what name you choose. This is just the name that is displayed in the MetaTrader. Oh, and then I click on next, and on finish. This is in German for me, but for you it will be next, and finish, I think. So once you did this, it will create like a raw skeleton of a new expert advisor for MetaTrader, for a MetaTrader 5 program. And on this compile button, which I usually click from time to time, you can use this button to take your MQ5 file. This is the file that we can edit, and compile it into a EX5 file. And you can then find this EX5 file if you switch back to your MetaTrader 5, and then in the navigator you click on this expert advisors folder here, and then you can find the Alligator system once you compiled it. So if we double click it, we can already attach it to this chart, and in the upper right corner we can now see Alligator system. So this program is now active on this specific chart. But of course this doesn't do anything because we didn't add any piece of code to a program. So what I like to do first is getting rid of these gray lines and the properties at the very top, because we do not need it. The gray lines are comments that do not affect the program, and the properties are just, they just give a information to the user of the program, but we do not need it. Then I like to rearrange my brackets like this. So I have the opening brackets of a body, a function body, after the name of the function, and the closing bracket after the body of the function at the beginning of a new line. So now we have three functions left, the onInit, the onDinit, and the onTick function. The onInit function is called whenever the program is initialized, onDinit if it is deinitialized, and onTick with every single tick. So first of all, we want to calculate the Alligator values. So there is a function for this, or a function to create a indicator handle. So the problem we have right now, we have to tell our program what specific or what exact Alligator indicator we want to calculate, because as we already mentioned some minutes ago, this Alligator indicator has several input parameters, and if I change the jaw period to 15, for example, the whole program looks different. If I change it to 20, it looks different again. So we have to tell our expert advisor what specific Alligator we want to calculate. So what we do here is we first of all create a global variable. This is global because it is not inside of the body of any function. And this is of type integer. Integer values are any numbers pretty much that do not have a decimal point. And handle Alligator is just the name of this variable, and then we end a line by adding a semicolon. So now we can jump to the onInit function, which is again called whenever the program is initialized, and this happens if it is dragged and dropped to the chart for the first time, or if the time frame changes, for example. And what we do here is we initialize this variable, because right now there is no defined value stored inside of this variable. But what we can do now is we can add, or we can put any number and store it inside of this variable. So this would work. Now we have 23 stored inside of this handle Alligator variable. But we do not want to store 23, of course, but we want to store a specific handle identifier pretty much. And we do this by calling the iAlligator function. And you can see here already in the description, in the short description or signature of this function, we can see the iAlligator function. It will return, you can see it here, it will return a integer value. And it has several parameters. So first of all, we can write iAlligator, and if you click inside of this name and click F1 on your keyboard, it should open the MQL5 reference, and you can read everything about this function. And for us, it is important to see like these lines, and let me just copy them and paste them here. So we can see all the different parameters that we have to provide for this function. So we open parentheses for the parameters of this function, and then we go ahead and first of all provide the symbol. The underscore symbol variable is a system variable that always holds the symbol of the current chart. So in this case, it would be euro, US dollar. Then as a second parameter, we have the time frame. We can just choose period current, which is a enumeration identifier. And this will, pretty similar to the underscore symbol variable, this will give us the time frame of the current chart. So in this case, this would be period M5, because we are in the M5 time frame here. So now we have all the parameters for the indicator. So jaw period, jaw shift, teeth period, teeth shift, and these are the parameters that are that can be defined for this Alligator. So this is a way of telling the expert advisor what specific Alligator we want to work with. So we can, for example, choose like these default values, which is jaw period, I think it was 13 before I changed it. So we go with 13 for the period, and shift is 8. So we can go 13, 8, and then we have teeth, period, and shift. So 8, 5. 5, and then we have 5 and 3, I think. Yeah, correct. And then we have the method and the applied to. The method is smoothed, so mode SMMA is the smoothed moving average. And we have apply price, and this is, in this case, for this indicator, the median price. So price median, like this. And now we can close the parentheses and end the line with a semicolon. So what we did here is we now create a handle for a indicator. So the return value of this Alligator function is a so-called handle. And this handle is just, basically it's just a number like 1 or 2 or 3. But since we used the Alligator function here, the computer will know if we choose a handle, it will then know what specific indicator is behind this specific handle. So what we can do now is in the onTick function, we can call another function, which is the copy buffer function. And here we can provide our handle. And this will help the expert advisor to realize what specific indicator we want to read data from, because we defined everything up here. And if you want to change some of these values, you can just change them here. For example, you can change the jaw period to 20, like this, but we can keep it as 13 for now. So now we use the copy buffer function to receive data from this specific Alligator indicator. And we have to provide a buffer number because, as we already learned, we have 3 different lines. So we have to tell the function what line we want to calculate here, pretty much. So we can say there is usually an identifier for this. Let's have a look at the documentation again. And you can see here the buffer numbers are Gator jaw line, Gator teeth line, and Gator lips line. So we can go with the jaw line here. So we can just write Gator jaw underscore line, because this will tell the copy buffer function that we want to read the jaws line data. And then we have a starting position, which could be 1. We have a count, which is 1. And then we need an array where we store the values. So we have to create this array here. And this is of type double. And double values are any values that have a decimal point, pretty much. And because we want to receive price data, as you can see here, 1 dot something, we need a double variable to store these data inside. And since this copy buffer function, it gives us the possibility to get multiple values. Oh, for example, in this case, we want 2 values. So we provide 2 for the count. This means that we will store 2 values inside of this double array. And this is why we cannot use a single variable like we did here. This is just one variable and we can put one value inside of this variable. But in this case, we will put multiple values inside of this variable array. This is why we need an array. And an array is always declared by writing these like squared brackets behind the variable name. And this means that this array cannot only hold one value, but it can hold multiple values. And they then have an index. For example, we could store at index 0, we could store 23.23, and at index 1, we can store something different. So this is not a problem. We can store multiple values in this array, and this is what the copy buffer function does. And yeah, and we do this for all the lines pretty much. So we can say we just copy these 2 lines and we do the same for the teeth and the lips, like this. So we have the teeth line and the lips line. So we exchange these identifiers here. And we store the values in different arrays, of course. Lips. And this should already work. What we can do to check if we made any mistake is we can write a chart comment like this. And we can say, for example, alligator jaw, and we can say we want to print the value here in this array at index 1, for example. So just copy this line here, and I will explain it in a second. Let me write this 2 more times, like this. Then we have the teeth and the lips, like this, and of course teeth and lips. So what we do here is we write a chart comment, and a chart comment is always displayed in the upper left corner here. And there we can print information to the chart pretty much. So we just print alligator jaw, and this is in quotation marks because it is a text. Texts in programming are usually in quotation marks. And then we add several values together in this comment, and they are then all printed. We just separate them with a comma. And then we use the double to string function because we want to turn our double value to a string value. And string values are pretty much text values in programming. So we want to take our number and make it a string so we can print it on the screen. And then we round it to a precision of the chart symbol, of the digits of the chart symbol. So for example, this has 5 digits, so we want to round it to a precision of 5. And since the onTick function is not triggered because it is a Saturday when I make this video, I will call the onTick function in the onInit function because the onInit function is always executed when the program is activated. So what we can see here is in the upper left corner, we will now see alligator jaw, teeth, and lips. And we can check if these values are correct for this bar here. So we have jaw, the jaw value. This is not the correct value, or is it rounded? Let's check the other values. Yeah, the other values are okay. So I think the first one is just rounded. Okay, so what we can see now is we receive the 3 values for this specific bar. And why do we receive the values for this bar? This is because we used the copy buffer function and always provided 1 as a starting position. And the starting position always starts from the very last candle in the chart. So this would be index 0, but since we provided index 1, we will start at this bar. And then we have a count of 2, so we receive the value of this bar and this bar. And in our 3 arrays, we will now have 2 values in every single array. And at index 1, we always have the value for this bar, and at index 0, we would have the value for this bar. And yeah, we can also print this on the screen like this. Wait, let me write it like this, and then we just write this here. Alligator jaw at index 1, and we can print it here like this and do it again and again. But in this case we have the teeth and the lips line. So we have teeth and lips. And if we compile it, we can now see that these values are indeed at index 1 if you compare it to the values here in this data window, and the values of this bar are at index 0. Yeah. Oh, and I know why these values do not match, because I calculated it in the indicator with 13 periods for the jawline, and here in the chart we still had 20 periods. So now the value should be correct. If I run the program again, so we can now see at index 1 is matching and 0 is also matching for the jaws line. Okay, so this is basically how you can get the value from this specific indicator, and not only from the Alligator indicator, but from any indicator in MetaTrader 5. The process is always the same. You create this handle, you initialize it in the onInit, and then you use the copy buffer function to receive values that you can then store inside of a double array. What we want to do now is we want to have the bars in the chart. So we have a bars total global variable of type integer, and then we initialize it in the onInit function for the current symbol, for the current chart period. So this will just store the amount of bars inside of the chart and put it inside of this bars total variable. And this will help us because now in the onTick function we can calculate the bars again, and then we can check if bars total is smaller than bars, because in this case there is a new bar in the chart that just appeared pretty much. So if this is true, we want to update the value in the bars total variable. So what we did here is we used a if statement, and the if statement is a so-called control structure. We have this code word if, then we have in parentheses a condition which uses operators like this, so which basically just check if bars total has a smaller or holds a smaller value than the bars variable. And in this case, if it's true, we enter the body of this if statement, which is in between of these curly brackets. And then we do everything that is inside of the body. If this is false, we skip the complete body and we go on with the piece of code that is written here. Right now there is no code, but if there would be any, we would just skip the body of this if statement and go on with the rest of the program. But in this body, we then update the bars total variable, so we only process this code once per bar. And this is important because now we want to see if there are any signals. So what we can do to check if there is a signal, we check if the lips value is greater than the teeth value for the last bar, and for the bar before the last bar, we want to see that the lips value is smaller than the teeth value, like this, right? And if this is true, then we have a by signal. So we can just print it in the chart. We can say something like Alligator by signal. And this is a function, the print function, which is used to enter a message in the expert advisor's log. This is what you can see here. But we will have to test this in the strategy tester because on Saturday there are no prices. So yeah, we will have to check it in the strategy tester. Then we have another if statement, which is just the opposite pretty much. So here we check if there was a crossing in the opposite direction. And in this case, we have a sell signal. At this point, we do not even check the filter. We just want to check if we can identify the signals. And this should already be enough to identify the signals. Let's give it a quick run in the strategy tester. You can open the strategy tester by clicking on View Strategy Tester. And let me close this navigator here, well, or the toolbox, because we do not need it. And then we go to Overview, click on Visualize in the tester, then click on Expert and find the Alligator system here. And yeah, there are no inputs, so we can just start it right away. So we click on Start and we should see, in the best case, that there are some alligator crossings that we can then read about in the expert's journal here. So let me speed it up a little bit. Whoops, there are some crossings. So let us check if these crossings are correct. For example, the last one is a sell signal at 9:40 and it should be somewhere here, but it is not. So something seems to be wrong. Oh no, I have to compare the green and the red line, of course. So you can see there was a crossover, and at the start of this bar, we get the sell signal. and the price then moves to the south. So this would be a good signal. So the previous signal was at 6:45. It should be somewhere here. There is a buy crossover, and the previous one was, I think it should be 5:55 or 5:50, and this is also correct. So it seems like we can identify the trading signals. But this is not enough, because now we also have to open positions. If you want to open positions in MetaTrader 5 programming, the easiest way is to use the ctrade class. So we have to include this class into our file. You can do this by writing this hashtag include, and then in these greater, smaller than brackets, you write trade/trade.mqh, because this will include a file to a program. And you can find this file if you click on, in the navigator, if you click on include trade.mqh. So this is like the exact file that we now pretty much add to our program. And this enables us to use the ctrade class. This is a little bit advanced, because this is not a normal variable, but it is an object variable of type ctrade. Ctrade is a class which is defined in this file. So this is object-oriented programming. If you never heard of it, for now, just accept that we can use this trade object now to open and close positions. If you want to learn more about this, check out the link below this video, and you will find our website en.bmtrading.de, where you can find a complete masterclass course for MetaTrader 5 programming, where you will learn about these things in detail, and where you learn how to work with object-oriented programming. But for now, we just have to know that we can now use this trade object variable and call functions using this point operator here. So we can say buy, and then we have to provide a volume like 0.1 lots, and this will then open a buy position. And for the opposite case, we want to open a sell position. So again, let's run the program real quick in the tester and see if we open positions. And I'm pretty sure that this will work, because I did this several times already in programming. Yeah, you can see there are positions. For example, here there was a crossover, a buy crossover, and we open a buy position. There was a sell crossover, we open a sell position. The big problem is we never really close these positions. So what we have to do here is we can work, for example, with a take profit and a stop loss. But first of all, we have to calculate these values. So what we do here is we first of all get the ask price for this symbol at the moment before we open the position. So we can use the symbol info double function to receive a double information for our current symbol. So we provide a symbol, and we say as a second parameter we want to have the ask price. Then we can round this ask price. This is always recommended because we're working with prices, and computers sometimes have some issues with decimal values. So you should always round it if you're working with prices. And now we can use this ask price to calculate a take profit. So what we do is we add, for example, 100 points to this ask price. And 100 points would be, if you use like the crosshair, which you can find here, or click Ctrl F to activate and deactivate it. And if you click and then drag to somewhere, you can see like the distance in points. And you can see here a point is pretty much the last or the smallest unit of the last digit of this symbol. For example, 70 points would be like 7 pips. So this is how you define a point in MetaTrader 5. And what we can do here, again, of course, we want to round this because this will make sure that it is a valid price. And then we can do the same, or we can have, for example, only 50 points as a SL distance. and then we round this. So we pretty much just calculated TP and SL values, and we can now use these variables and provide them to our by function here. So first of all, we have to provide a symbol that we want to open this position in. This is just the chart symbol. Then we can provide a price. We use the ask price because we want to open a market position. And then we can provide a SL and a TB. And we could also say we want to have a comment like alligator buy. So we now provided all the parameters for this by function. And please see or realize that only the volume is a must-have parameter. All the other parameters have default values. You can see this because there is an equal sign and then there is a default value. So you do not have to provide them, but you can. And this is what we did here. So now let me just copy these lines here and add them here for the sell signal. In this case, we open sell positions at the bid price. So we have to make some adjustments here. And then we calculate the TP a little bit differently because the TP is smaller or below the opening of a sell position, and the SL is of course above the position open price. And then the rest is pretty much the same. We provide all these values here and we say it is a alligator sell trade. If we compile this and if we run the program again, we should now see that the positions are not only opened, but they are also closed because they now have a TP and SL price. And if the price reaches either one of these levels, the position is of course closed. So let's check this out. Yeah, we saw already there was the first sell signal, it hit the stop loss. There was a buy signal, it hit the stop loss. There was a sell signal, it hit the take profit. So overall, we should be pretty much break even. But since we have costs and everything, we are a little bit in a downtrend. But we can, of course, see more trades. You can see, yeah, you can just do it on your own PC, in your own tester, and you can just play around with these settings. And you can see we always have like winning and losing trades, and we have a comment, and we have everything that we just programmed. And since the TP has a higher point distance, pretty much, the winners are bigger than the losers. And you can, of course, always play around with these values. You can just say you want to have 200 points as a TP, like this, or 150. So you can just play around with this in the code. And there's one last thing that we want to do because we want to activate our filter pretty much. So what we can do, first of all, maybe let's get... Oh no, let's do something like we check after we realize there's a buy signal, we then check if the ask price is above the jaw value at index 1. So we check if the ask price is higher than the jaw value at the previous bar. And for the sell side, we check if the bid price is below the JAWS value at index 1 in this JAWS array. And then we put all of this inside of this if statement's body. So this way we can make sure that we only open the position if the price is below or above the JAWS line. So let's check this again. Let me speed it up a little bit once it is loaded. And then we can see if this works. Okay, so there we have a buy signal, I think, and this is of course correct because the price is above the blue line. So yeah, another buy signal, and I think, yeah, there was a sell signal that we did not turn into a trade because at this point the price was above the blue line. So the filter already helped us to avoid one losing trade here. And I think here we can, no, here we cannot see it. There was no crossover. Here we cannot see it because there was a trade. Let's check out some more signals. Okay, these were all valid signals. But every now and then we can filter a signal because, yeah, like the price is not at the right level. Yeah, I think somewhere here we filtered a buy signal. Here we filtered a buy. No, the price was there, so we did not filter a buy signal. Yeah, but you can just check it on your own PC in your strategy tester if it works for you, and you can of course always play around with this code. Right now with my settings in this specific time frame, it doesn't really seem to be profitable, but just play around with these settings and you will eventually find a setting that is profitable. So this is a really simple program, and I mean, I will stop the programming tutorial here. You can of course add more stuff like trailing stops. You can change the values of the alligator indicator. You can change the values for the TP and SL calculation. You can change everything. I mean, this is free code for you and you can just modify it as you like. So my big goal with these tutorials is that you learn something and that you can have, or that you can find fun programming strategies that you can then test. So let me know if you liked this tutorial, and as I already mentioned, check out the link below this video and you will find a website where you can find some free stuff like the Trade Buddy, Trading Journal, or a complete course for MetaTrader 5 programming. For now, this is it for this tutorial. Let me check you the code again real quick so you can copy it if you did not copy it yet. And then there's nothing left to say. Then goodbye and see you in the next video. Until then, have a great time and good trades. Bye bye.